Hello and welcome to the FanDuel Punch Out. I'm BigIdly42. He is Josh Shepardson at BChad50, and I feel like we use the word interesting for a lot of slates. So maybe we need a different one for tonight. But there's going to be a lot of diversity in lineups today, outside of maybe one player where Garrett Cole probably going to be your chalk play for cash games, and rightfully so. I mean, he's at home in a pitcher's park. It's a sizable favorite against an Arizona team that's really struggled on the road. I mean, a couple individual bats that you worry about a little bit, but obviously Cole's got great stuff still. He's the guy that, a lot of people are going to be on, whether you like it or not. He's just kind of the guy you go to in cash games because Cole Hamels is at home against a hot Seattle team, and it's hot there too. You and I were talking before the show. You don't like targeting guys in that hot weather. It's fatigue. Also, it's just a tough environment. Ball carries farther, so don't really like him outside of tournaments. Why don't you tell me another guy that you're looking at? 'Cause I know there's a couple guys we're considering as alternatives if we can.
I'm going to go right down to the cheapest arm on the docket, and that's $3,000 Colin Ray. I think if you're going away from Garrett Cole tonight, going bat centric is one way to kind of attack your cash games a little bit differently. And obviously, whenever you see a pitcher like this cheap, they become a pretty popular GPP target because people just love to load up on bats and GPPs anyways. But I do think it's a viable strategy tonight in cash games as well, is grabbing $3,000 Colin Ray and surrounding him with a lot of bats. He's only got one big league start that came against the Reds at home, went 5 innings, struck out 4, got the win and scored a total of 10 fantasy points on FanDuel. So if he can post even a remotely similar performance, you take 8 to 12 points from him, and you're thrilled at $3,000 because you've got all the flexibility in the world. I mean, you and I before the show were talking, and I was just putting in almost the most expensive bat at every position, and you can damn near do that with Colin Ray. But he's an option, and then a couple other guys that I'm looking at. Again, lower ceiling than Cole, but significantly cheaper. I'm looking at Andrew Heaney a little bit. The White Sox have been bad against left-handed pitching this year. Rasmo Ramirez has been very good. He's $7,000. I don't like him quite as much as Heaney. The other name that I like that's probably my second favorite cash games arm in the non-hitter-centric mold is Scott Kazmir at home. The Rays are tough against lefties, which is scary, but they also strike out quite a bit. Strike out in over 21% of their plate appearances against lefties. So Vegas does have a low over/under total on that game. So if you're feeling like you want to go that route, I certainly understand it. There's strikeout potential. Vegas has to give you a little bit of confidence with a low total at hitter-friendly Minute Maid Park, and he does give you a $1,000 saving from Garrett Cole. So those are really the names that I'm looking at. But there are some interesting GPP plays as well that you and I talked about.
Yeah. Carlos Rodon being one of them, the guy that all he did was just slaughter this team last time out in his last start. 7 innings, 4 hits and a walk, scoreless, 11 strikeouts, got the win. While you're certainly not expecting those type of numbers again, this is an offense that's been really bad. I mean, we're talking I believe they're bottom 8 in the in all of baseball in team WOBA over the past 30 days. I think they're under 300. I think it's 295. Just a team that's just not hitting well right now at all. And if Trout and Pujols aren't getting it done, you don't have anybody else to fall back on, especially as right-handed batters. I mean, Cole Calhoun, a lefty, struggles mightily with lefties. So Rodon, either way, should have a nice strikeout floor, even if he does struggle a little bit. So gotta like him as a target there. And then, a couple of the guys that are interesting. Michael Wacha has been pitching really well, does pitch better at home, $9,200. I mean, probably of all the guys on the board here, probably the most consistent over his past few starts. 7, 6, and 7 strikeouts, 7, 6, and 7 innings, getting the win. Obviously, on the other side, you've got Chris Heston, where he struggles a little bit with left-handed batters, so tend to think maybe Wacha gets a little bit of support. I don't think he's a bad alternative to Cole in cash games if you're not a fan of the San Francisco bats tonight.
Yeah, and as you and I discussed before the show, I mean, this is an instance where tonight you really want to keep tuned to the lineups more than ever because you get a big bat that sits from one of these lineups. Maybe you end up having some more faith to go away from Cole tonight and grab a different cash games arm and save a little bit of money because, I mean, 10,200 is expensive for Cole when you look at his FanDuel point scoring, his game log. Just not a ton of huge games scoring-wise, but at this point in time, with what lineups we expect to come out, it's really hard to say to fade him because he is really the best pitcher in the best situation with the biggest betting line at money line favorites. So, lot to like there, but stay tuned to the lineups because there are a couple guys nipping at his heels, I guess you could say.
Yeah, definitely. So we'll throw out one more arm as a GPP guy. We don't like to target the Boston offense right now as hot as they've been, but Danny Salazar, as we know, has monster strikeout upside at 9K. And as far as consistency goes, he's been up there. It's pretty damn consistent over his past few starts as well. So you don't feel good about it, but you don't feel good about a whole lot of these guys. At least he gives you a nice strikeout floor.
Yep.
All right, catcher options. A lot of these positions are fairly deep tonight. Like we said, a lot of uncertainty at pitcher from top to bottom. But catcher's pretty straightforward for me. I've got a couple guys on my list. I know you and I agree. Love Brian McCann tonight against contact pitcher Kyle Gibson. He's a ground ball pitcher, and he's been better, but not a guy that we're trying to shy away from. But I think if I'm paying down, the guys I'm looking at are Jonathan Lucroy, minimum salary against a lefty at home, and then Stephen Vogt. Vogt more of a tournament option at 26 for me against Chris Tillman, who has actually been pitching better, struggled in his last start, but over the past few months, much better than he was at the beginning of the year. For me, though, if I'm not paying for McCann, it's Lucroy all day.
Yeah, I'm in agreement there. And one name that I remember you bringing up before the show that I think is worth mentioning is Yan Gomes. He gets Matt Barnes at Boston. Obviously, he's not getting the lefty like we usually like, but he is getting a young pitcher who is stuck pitching in a hitter-friendly ballpark and hasn't been particularly good this year. So I don't mind using Gomes as an alternative as well. And because he's not facing a lefty, you are talking about super low ownership for him. More of a GPP play. In cash games, it's basically McCann or Lucroy for me.
Yeah, 100% agree with you there. First base, as always, plenty of options. I'll give out a couple of guys I'm looking at the most. You and I, once again, another Yankee bat. Mark Teixeira has a ridiculous ISO against righties, north of 300. He's got a ton of power. Jose Abreu locked in right now. Andrew Heaney has been a fine pitcher, but he's a guy that's given up a lot of hard contact this season. So 36.2% hard contact rate. So if there's any one guy you expect to exploit that, it's one of the best hitters in baseball, and Jose Abreu. So those are the guys I'm targeting the most. Of course, you like David Ortiz in tournaments because he's been pretty locked in right now. You get Carlos Carrasco, so not a great matchup, but if that offense continues to roll, you got to like him. And then my cheap guy that I like, Pedro Alvarez, $2,700, picking on Jeremy Hellickson, who, as we all know, pretty giving to lefties and righties this season and every other season.
Yeah, and not shocking, but this is one of the deepest positions to pick from today. You've got plenty of options. I think in GPPs, paying up for Chris Davis against Sonny Gray could be a real game changer since he's one of the most expensive first baseman, most expensive bat actually at 5,100. But he has been locked in since the All-Star break. Even a tough matchup like Sonny Gray isn't terribly scary with Davis hitting the ball as hard as he is now. But because he's so expensive and there are other options, you expect him to be low-owned tonight. I also like Prince Fielder if you're looking to go off of Teixeira. We mentioned it, that the Heat has done wonders for the ball carrying and for the offenses there in Texas. So got to like Prince Fielder a bit against Taijuan Walker, who's been inconsistent this year. Been very good at times, but been very bad at other times. So I don't mind taking advantage of an inconsistent pitcher with a very consistent hitter in the form of Prince Fielder. For GPPs, I don't mind CJ Cron at 2,500. We do know that Rodon just mowed down these Angels last week, but Cron hits left-handed pitching very hard, and obviously Rodon is a lefty, so that plays to his advantage. And then one more name I'll throw out for GPPs, and that's Justin Bour at 2,300. Gets a nice park shift going from his home ballpark to Miller Park. Left-handed power plays there. Bour, for all his faults, certainly won't say that power is one of them. So any other names that you're looking at first base?
Nobody else particular. Carlos Santana's a guy you can consider. Obviously, a switch hitter. You don't really know what's going on with the Indians lineup. That's another one that's important to watch because you hear Michael Brantley should be back to DH today. They originally wanted Kipnis back today, saying now it's probably going to be tomorrow. So keep your eye on that because if you add one more big bat in there, you get more run scoring, RBI potential, all of those things with Santana. But if both those guys sit again, then he definitely loses some value for me.
Yep.
All right, second base options. You got to love Brian Dozier here. You liked him with CC Sabathia was supposed to pitch. Now, Brian Mitchell. Either way, $3,600 a fine price for him. But if you're paying down a little bit, I think the cash game play is probably going to be Neil Walker if you can't afford Dozier, 2,900 against Hellickson. And then another guy that I really like, anytime you face the lefty, even though it's a good lefty in Scott Kazmir, Logan Forsythe has an ISO over 300 against lefties. And quietly, seemingly still a guy that just does not have near the ownership he should. So love him in GPPs tonight.
Yeah, and he's another one of those guys that you love the park factor shift. He's playing at Minute Maid tonight, so you're going to get some homer-friendly park factors there. I like D. Gordon at 3,300 against Matt Garza tonight quite a bit. And also looking, there was a bargain second baseman that I'm drawing a blank on right now.
Stephen Drew.
Stephen Drew is a nice GPP play, and I'm sorry, not exactly a bargain play, but around the Neil Walker price territory. Colton Wong gets a chance to exploit Chris Heston's struggles with lefties at 2,800, so not quite the bargain. That's why I was drawing a blank, looking a little bit too cheap on the player pool, but I do like Colton Wong at $2,800. If for whatever reason maybe you don't like the lineup spot for Walker tonight, Wong will hit second against Heston, so 2,800 looks pretty good to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And then one more GPP guy I'll throw out there. You don't like the matchup, but you love how hot he's been in his whole offense. Brock Holt, $2,600. He's got 10 hits in his last 4 games. 3 of those were doubles. 1 was a triple. 6 RBIs. I mean, you can go on all day about how good this whole offense has been. So definitely want to get some exposure in GPPs tonight. At the hot corner here, third base, you got to like Matt Carpenter. Already mentioned Heston's struggles against lefties. You were just talking about those with Wong. So obviously Carpenter, showing a lot of power recently too. He's up to 18 home runs on the season, which is an element of his game that wasn't there before this season. So you got to like that. Alex Rodriguez makes a ton of hard contact against righties. Kyle Gibson, definitely a guy that doesn't miss a lot of bats, as we mentioned. So you're liking him. And then, of course, Miguel Sano, got to mention him once again at 3,500. I was hoping we could get some Trevor Plouffe against Sabathia, but we'll talk about that one tomorrow.
Yeah, a couple other names that I'm looking at. Evan Longoria against Scott Kazmir. Kazmir, a tough lefty, but Longo very good against left-handed pitching. So $3,100, nice price point to take advantage of him at Minute Maid Ballpark. But I think my favorite bargain of the day at any position is $2,300 Derek Dietrich. Hit third yesterday. Is facing Matt Garza, who's been very giving to left-handed batters, and is hitting at Miller Park, which is quite fruitful for many left-handed batters throughout the last few years.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, Adrian Beltre there as well, and there's not a whole lot else that really stands out at third base. Not a particularly great position tonight. All right, shortstop options. Carlos Correa, $4,300, definitely your top option in the righty-righty matchup against Erasmo Ramirez, but probably not going to want to pay an elite price tag for. A good matchup, but not a great one considering the price. One guy's been hitting really well still is Drupal Cabrera. Good tournament option there at $3,500, but as it seems like it is most nights, more often than not, I'm just going to go with Johnny Peralta at $2,600. Chris Heston has been good against righties, but I think he's a fine option in the middle that does have some upside. He's got a higher ISO against lefties, but a higher WOBA against righties, so he's a fine play more often than not. And then, if not him, then you're going down the cheap options. And I know there's one guy, min salary in particular, that you're looking at here.
Yeah, I like Jean Segura against Justin Nicolino, $2,200 min salary. He did hit leadoff at one point. He also has batted down order for them. Regardless of where he is in the lineup, he's in a good ballpark tonight. He's facing a young pitcher who has struggled a bit with right-handed batters. And, for $2,200, it's hard to argue with a punt like that. There are a couple other pricey bats that I'm looking at shortstop. Jung Oh Gang got a day off, deserved one. He's been playing every day basically since the Josh Harrison injury. Got to think he's a little bit refreshed tonight, and you got to think that he loves looking at Jeremy Hellickson on the mound against him. Gang's been very good against lefties and righties, better against lefties than righties, but he gets a righty that's rather giving to right-handed batters, so I like Gang quite a bit tonight. And then I like Carlos Correa's teammate Jed Lowry, who just hasn't seemed to skip a beat since getting activated from the disabled list. He's hitting the ball very well, and he comes at a sizable discount from his teammate. And honestly, most of the time you figure if people are looking to a shortstop in Houston, it's not going to be Jed Lowry, so you might get some low ownership there as well if you're looking at him in GPPs.
Yeah, it's the whole Sano and Plouffe effect too. You know, you get two third basemen, the same one. You can take the less popular one, it's still in a fine spot. Definitely a good swerve. Outfield options. You have to love Nelson Cruz against any lefty. It's a good lefty in Cole Hamels, but we know the drill here. It's in Texas too, so nice park shift for him. I love the price tag on Ryan Braun at $3,900. I know you do as well. And then I'll just go ahead and skip right to the middle here where there's a ton of guys. Jacoby Ellsbury, $2,900, just way too cheap. Gregory Polanco, you keep waiting for this hot streak to stop, but it doesn't look like it's ever going to end the way he's hitting right now. $3,200 for him. And his teammate, one of my favorite plays on the night, and that's Starling Marte at $2,900. This guy, a few games removed from an injury, but, I mean, this guy he obviously crushes left-handed pitching, pretty good against righties, too, and, you know, not a bad game last night with a triple, 2 hits, 5.25 points. I mean, he's a guy who steals bases. He kind of does it all, and I want as many pieces of Jeremy Hellickson as I can tonight.
Yeah, there is so much value in the outfield, especially right around this $3,000 price point. You know, 33 to 2,800 or so. You're finding value galore. Chris Davis looks good in GPPs against a lefty at home. Brett Gardner at 3,100 is a fine play against Kyle Gibson. I mean, you're gonna want some Yankee bats. 4.5 run over under total is tied for the highest on the night. Preston Tucker has done damage against righties all year. He's at home again tonight. Gotta like that matchup. Teammate Colby Rasmus coming off of a 2-homer game. Certainly not afraid of using him against a righty that doesn't miss a ton of bats at home today, at least in GPPs. Jacoby Ellsbury looks great at $2,900. Another one of those Yankee bats that's a table setter. And one really, really cheap name that I'm just completely enamored with, delivered for me on Saturday, going back to the well again today, $2,300, Josh Reddick. Gets to play at gets to play at Camden Yards again tonight. I've been spewing all the love for Miller Park. I wanted to give it a little bit more love, but we like Camden Yards too, especially for these left-handed power bats, and Josh Reddick fits that bill.
Yeah, definitely. And then a couple other hot hitters right now. Jackie Bradley, $2,900. Been batting ninth, but I mean the way he's hitting, you don't care. He had 5 extra base hits in a game 2 games ago with 7 RBIs, 2 homers. He has multiple, or at least an extra base hit in 3 straight games. And 5 of his last 6. So, I mean, you don't like the lineup spot, but in GBP, you don't care when the production comes. You just want the production. He's definitely a guy providing it. Another guy that's hot right now, Gerardo Parra. We know he kills right-handed pitching. And, I mean, this is a guy that people probably are going to be hesitant to pay for around this price because, like you mentioned, there's so much value. Other guys are going to have more ownership. But Parra at $3,300, I mean, he's on fire right now, so I really like him as well.
Yep, I agree.
All right, one more cheap guy. Mark Trumbo has some cheap power in Texas against the lefty. We mentioned he's a good lefty, but anytime you get a good ballpark with lefty, I'm going to get some Trumbo shares in tournaments.
Yep, I agree.
All right, that's going to wrap things up. Find us on Twitter at DF Cafe. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check out all of our great content at dailyfantasycafe.com.